What would you do if your HOA took chainsaws to your 40-year-old lakefront trees without warning, without permission, and without a single apology? I'll tell you what I did. I didn't scream. I didn't post a mean sign. I didn't call my lawyer and lose. I did something completely, 100% legal. That meant they will never see that lake again. Not from their windows, not from their patios, not ever. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to learn the exact playbook that turned my HOA's biggest power move into their permanent nightmare. Hit that subscribe to HOA Conflicts button right now, because this story gets so much worse before it gets so much better. Let's go. It was a Tuesday in early October when my neighbor called me at work. I figured it was the usual stuff, maybe a package left on the porch. Maybe some deer got into the garden. Instead, she said 4 words that still echo in my head. They cut them down. I left work immediately, and when I pulled into my driveway on my Cedar Ridge Lake Ranch property, the place I'd spent 15 years building into exactly what I wanted, I saw them. Or rather, I saw what was left of them. For massive, beautiful, bald cypress trees that had stood on the eastern edge of my lot for over 4 decades. My grandfather had planted 2 of them himself. They provided shade, privacy, wildlife habitat, and this is important, so pay attention. They provided the primary natural screen between my backyard and the HOA's newly built community walking path. Now they were stumps. 8-inch high stumps with fresh sawdust still scattered across my lawn like confetti at the world's worst party. The HOA's landscaping crew had made a boundary error. That's what Brenda Kensington, the board president, called it. A boundary error, like accidentally deleting a file. Not like destroying living things that were older than some of the board members. 3 days after the incident, I received a letter from the Homeowners Association. I want to read you the key sentence because it is genuinely one of the most infuriating things I have ever received in written form. It said, and I quote, "The association regrets any inconvenience this maintenance activity may have caused and looks forward to your continued cooperation with community standards. Any inconvenience. They removed irreplaceable trees from my private property, trees that served as my primary lakeside privacy barrier, and they called it an inconvenience. Like running out of parking. Like the community pool closing an hour early. They also, and this part is critical, offered me a settlement. They would plant 2 ornamental cherry trees in replacement. 2 ornamental cherry trees for 4 bald cypress trees with trunks wider than my arm span. I almost laughed out loud. Almost, because that's when the idea started forming. You see, I'm not a confrontational person by nature. I don't enjoy conflict, but I am meticulous. I keep records. Upkeep records. I know my property lines down to the inch. And I immediately understood something the HOA board clearly did not. They had just handed me the legal and moral high ground on a silver platter. All I had to do was use it correctly. Before I did anything before, I planted a single seed or made a single call. Hired a property rights attorney to review my situation. And here's where things got genuinely interesting. My property, like many lakefront and rural ranch properties, sits in a zoning district that gives me extensive rights around what I can build, grow, plant, and maintain on my own land, including structures and plantings that directly affect my neighbors' sightlines. My attorney confirmed something beautiful. Because the HOA had already violated my property boundary documented with timestamps, photographs, and a surveyor's report I had commissioned within 24 hours of the incident, I was now in an extremely strong position. Not just to sue, but to do something far more permanent, far more satisfying, and completely unambiguously legal. You have the right to plant whatever you want, as tall as it can grow, anywhere within your setback lines, my attorney said. And given what they did, I'd exercise every inch of that right. I also discovered something else. The HOA's community walking path, the one that ran parallel to where my trees had stood, had been approved with a specific stipulation in the original HOA development documents. It's a stipulation that stated, in plain language, that adjacent private property owners retained all rights to maintain visual privacy barriers on their own lots. In other words, the HOA themselves had signed off on a document that explicitly protected my right to block the view. And then they cut down the thing that was blocking it. Now, here's where I want to get specific, because I know a lot of you watching have dealt with similar situations. HOA overreach, neighbor disputes, property line conflicts, and you want to know what actually works. It's not just emotionally satisfying, actually permanently, legally works. I brought in a licensed landscape architect. We spent 2 full days designing what I now think of as the privacy project. The goal was simple: restore my visual privacy, enhance my property value, comply with every single local ordinance. And this is the part I want you to really hear. To create a situation that cannot be undone without my explicit consent and a court order. Here's what we planted. Along the entire eastern boundary of my lot, the boundary that faces the HOA walking path, we installed a staggered 3-row planting of Thuja green giant arborvitae. For those unfamiliar, these trees grow 3 to 5 feet per year. They reach heights of 30 to 40 feet at maturity. They are evergreen, meaning they block the view 365 days a year, not just in summer. They are virtually disease-resistant, and once established, they require almost zero maintenance. Behind the Thuja wall on my side, giving me a natural layered garden effect, we planted a row of mature Nellie Stevens holly trees, alternated with Leyland cypress. The combined effect, a visual barrier that starts dense at 8 feet high and escalates to a solid green wall at full canopy. From the HOA walking path, you will see green, just green, forever. No lake, no view, no sightline whatsoever. Every tree was planted within my setback lines. Every species was approved by the county. Every installation was documented, photographed, and filed. It was a legal masterpiece of landscaping. The planting crew started on a Saturday morning. By noon, Brenda Kensington had driven past twice. By 3 p.m., I had received a text asking me to pause the project for a community review. I did not pause. Monday morning, I received a formal cease and desist letter from the HOA's attorney. It claimed my planting violated community aesthetic guidelines and would negatively impact the shared enjoyment of the natural environment. I forwarded it to my own attorney with a single note. I'd like to respond in full. The response my attorney sent back was thorough, documented, and referenced 6 separate legal precedents related to property rights versus HOA authority in our state. It noted that my plantings complied with every applicable local ordinance, that their own development documents explicitly protected my right to privacy barriers, and that their prior unauthorized removal of trees from my property had already exposed them to significant civil liability. It also made clear diplomatically, but unmistakably, that any attempt to compel the removal of legally planted vegetation from my private property would be contested at every level. The HOA withdrew the cease and desist within 72 hours. Victory. It has now been 14 months since the first thuja went in the ground. The trees have grown approximately 4 feet. The Leyland cypress in the back row are already at 12 feet. The Nellie Stevens holly filled in faster than even the landscape architect expected. They're thick and impenetrable now, with glossy, dark green leaves year-round. From my side of the property, my backyard, my lake view, my private space to plantings frame the water beautifully. It is actually more scenic than before. The trees give the lakefront a curated, natural feel. My property value, according to a recent appraisal, has increased by more than the cost of the entire planting project. From the HOA walking path, nothing. Solid green. You can hear the water if the wind is right. You cannot see it. You cannot see my yard, my dock, my outdoor kitchen, or anything else. I have complete, permanent legal privacy, and it grows 3 to 5 feet more every single year. I didn't spend a single dollar in court. I didn't put up a fence. I didn't yell at anyone. I planted trees. And those trees will be standing long after everyone on that HOA board has retired, moved away, or simply given up. Here's what I want every single person watching this to walk away knowing. HOAs operate on the assumption that most homeowners don't understand their rights. They send letters that sound authoritative. They use legal language. They rely on intimidation and inertia. Most people fold. And I understand why it's exhausting, it's confusing, and most of us just want to live our lives peacefully. But knowledge is the most powerful weapon you have. Know your property lines and have them surveyed if you haven't recently. Know your local zoning laws, as they frequently give you more rights than HOA documents suggest. Know your HOA's own founding documents because they often contain provisions the board itself has forgotten or ignored. And document everything. Every conversation, every letter, every incident, dates, photos. Witnesses the HOA in my situation made 3 critical mistakes. They violated my property boundary. They failed to understand their own founding documents. And they underestimated how methodically I would respond. Don't make their mistakes, and don't let your HOA make them against you unchallenged. If you've ever had an HOA bully you, a neighbor overstep a boundary, or a situation where you felt powerless against an organization that was supposed to serve you, this channel is your home. Subscribe to HOA Conflicts right now. Hit that notification bell, because next week I'm covering what happened when the HOA tried to fine me for the trees they couldn't make me remove, and the letter my attorney sent back that made the entire board go quiet for 6 months. Drop a comment below. Has your HOA ever overstepped? I read every single one. And if you found this video useful, share it with one person who's dealing with an HOA right now. They need this information. I'm Arthur Mitchell at HOA Conflicts, where we don't start wars, we finish them. Legally. See you next time.